Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Full disclosure, I wasn't planning on making a video today. As a matter of fact, I just got back from the gym. I do, however, want to give credit where credit is due, so I quick put this video in the production. WATA Games, if anybody from WATA Games is watching this particular video, you have my full support of this particular action that you just taken. It really is a step in the direction that we want to go to show ethics and transparency in the overall market for graded video games. And if you don't know what I'm alluding to, WATA Games just made all the population reports for every single game they graded for the Nintendo Entertainment System public on their website. Now, to be fair, WATA Games has only been in existence since 2018. So we are going to go through some of the games that they have graded, and we're going to talk about this in depth. Because again, I hate to say this, a lot of my predictions are coming true. There's a lot of games out there that you guys think are quote-unquote rare just because they're factory sealed, and we're seeing multiple copies show up. Like, wait until we get to the commentary on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out or even Metroid. You guys are really going to be surprised when I tell you how many factory sealed copies are out there and what grade they achieved. Now, to be fair, I do know some of these games, as you know, Nintendo games were sealed with different variants, whether it's an oval seal, white seal, whatever we're calling it. WATA Games did do a great job, as if you click on one of the games, if it has a little plus sign, you can click on that plus sign and it'll tell you how many copies exist even in that particular seal type or variant. They also did release the reports for complete and box games as well as cart-only games. What we're going to be focusing today in this video is how many of these games exist in factory sealed condition, because that's where the so-called speculators, so-called investors are putting their money into for the short term and potentially the long term, which obviously I do not recommend. As you're going to see, certain examples in this case kind of proves my point why. Now again, going back to what I said originally, WATA Games has only been in existence since 2018. So that's very important to note, because you need to realize that two things. Number one, they're currently backlogged with a lot of submissions that have yet to hit these population reports. And number two, you also need to realize that there's a lot of collectors out there that have yet to send their factory sealed games into WATA. There's also other warehouse finds, items out there that we probably don't even know exist yet, that will probably be uncovered over the next year, over the next decade. They'll get sent in and they'll add even more items to these already flush population reports. Now, to be fair, I do want to answer my critics one question. Are there surprises on these reports? Are there games out there in the 3 years that WATA Games has been in existence that still could qualify as being quote unquote rare, either just because they exist in factory seal condition or they're of a very high grade? The answer is yes. But for most cases, I'm going to tell you, most of these games are not rare. Remember, as we go through this, again, WATA Games has only been in existence since 2018. They haven't graded every single factory sealed Nintendo game as of yet. If we look at a company like CGC that grades comic books, CGC has been in existence since the year 2000, 2001, and still to this day, new collections are being discovered of near mint copies of Silver Age keys, Bronze Age keys that are getting sent to CGC and they're getting encapsulated. To put that in perspective, WATA Games pretty much has decades to go before they pretty much get to the point where they can say, hey, we pretty much know exactly almost how much of X number of copies of Super Mario Brothers or The Legend of Zelda or Mike Tyson's Punch-Out exist in factory seal condition in each and every grade. You also have to understand that VGA, Video Game Authority, has been grading these games for even longer, but to be fair, VGA has yet to release full-fledged population reports either. So again, we do not know how many copies of these games are out there. This just provides a starting point to look back and go, oh, in the first 3 years that WATA Games has been in existence, this is how many copies of each of these titles were graded and sealed by them, and also what grade they each achieved. So these results are very important, and some of them are stunning. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and I'm going to pick out certain games that I want to highlight your attention to because we may have talked about them before on this particular channel, or they may have come up in other collecting forums or other commentary from other YouTube channels out there that are telling you that you should be investing in this stuff. So we're going to see who's right and who's wrong thus far, being only 3 years into this speculative euphoria. You ready to begin? Okay, I'm going to need my glasses for this. Let's start. The first game we're going to look at, and I'm going to try to pick, guys, the more popular games. Obviously, like I'm looking at the first page here. If we want to talk about the game Arch Rivals, there's 5 known factory sealed copies of Arch Rivals out there for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the highest known is in 9.6 condition. No, I'm sorry, 9.8 condition. I apologize. So there's 5 known copies of that game. Highest known is in 9.8 condition. There would be no point talking about it because if somebody or an auction company or a collector has a copy of Arch Rivals, we know that that game is not going to sell for a significant premium. Meaning no one in their right mind is going to pay like $100 grand for a factory sealed copy of Arch Rivals for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 9.8 condition. Feel free to cut me up in the comment section below if you disagree with that analysis. But I'm telling you, I think I'm spot on there. So I'm not going to focus on games like that. What I am going to focus on, and we're going to start with some Konami titles. We're going to go all the way over here, and we're going to talk about Castlevania, Castlevania 3, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, because these are all popular games that people have been going after. Now, full disclosure, I know all of these early Konami games, even late Konami games, when we talk about Castlevania 3, they all have different factory seals. I'm not going to spend too much talking about the different factory seals. You can do that for yourself. What I'm interested in is the total number copies that were graded and the highest grade they achieved. So if we look at Castlevania, Castlevania has 22 factory sealed copies out there thus far that were graded by WATA, and the highest graded copy is in 9.4 condition. There are 2 copies that exist in that grade. Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, there are 42 total factory sealed copies out there, and 11 of them are in 9.6 condition. That is the highest graded condition thus far. So obviously, if a 9.8 would come along, it would be the king of the crown for that particular game, grading-wise. But right now, just know, if you're looking to get a copy of Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, I would not recommend it because, again, there's 42 copies out there, and 11 of them are in 9.6 condition, which tells me most of these were kept in factory sealed cases, guys, which is what I've been saying since the beginning that this YouTube channel started back in 2019. So Castlevania 3, we all know it's a great game. I own a copy of that game. A lot of people really liked Castlevania 3. I enjoyed it. There are 33 factory sealed copies thus far that have been graded by WATA. The highest graded copy of that game is in 9.6 condition, and there are 3 of those at present time. Again, a lot of these games that were submitted, I guarantee you, were pulled from factory sealed cases. These items are not as rare as a lot of you guys make them out to be, and I think that's very important. Now let's look at Contra. Everybody loves the original Contra for the Nintendo Entertainment System, of course, made by Konami. Well, believe it or not, there are 31 copies of Contra that are factory sealed and graded by WATA, the highest one being in 9.8 condition, and that is the only known copy at present time, but there are 5 in 9.6 condition. So you got to take that into account, guys. A lot of this stuff that is out there has been sitting in factory sealed cases. A lot of you guys have an improper bias to this market. You think that people actually either bought one of these and kept it near mint condition. No, they were readily available in cases. And by the way, again, I got to repeat this. We are only 3 years into this trend. These numbers are going to do nothing but increase. They're not going to decrease. They're going to increase. Let's look at another game. And I bring this one up because this is one of my favorite original Nintendo games because it was one of the first RPGs that I played on it. The original Dragon Warrior. Now, to be fair to all my critics out there, I'm well aware that Dragon Warrior, the original, was produced in mass quantities. It was a Nintendo Power giveaway. Just so that you guys are aware, there are 89 copies of Dragon Warrior in factory sealed condition that have thus far been graded by WATA Games, and the highest, there is one in 9.8 condition. There are 6 in 9.6 condition. There are 16 copies of Dragon Warrior in 9.4 condition. You guys are really going to get something out of this if you take the time to study these population reports. Let's continue here. Now, since I brought up Dragon Warrior, I do at least want to bring up Dragon Warrior 2. At present time, there are only 4 known factory sealed copies of Dragon Warrior 2, and the highest grade is in 9.2 condition. So that kind of surprises me, I will admit. That I am kind of shocked about because I thought for sure if people were going to go after Dragon Warrior, they would go after the sequel, and some of those people would have at least kept it sealed. Now, we don't know. Again, we're only 3 years into this. Possibly there is somebody, even possibly somebody watching this video, who's sitting on a couple of factory sealed cases of Dragon Warrior 2. But I do know, given the fact that the original Dragon Warrior was produced and published by Nintendo, it was designed by Enix, but Nintendo pretty much manufactured and published that game. It was made available in higher quantities. But what is surprising is, even Dragon Warrior 3 has 6 known factory sealed copies out there, with the highest graded being in 9.8 condition. Even Dragon Warrior 4, which I would think would be the more rare of all the Dragon Warrior games, if I can use that term, there's 12 factory sealed copies that have already been graded by WATA. The highest graded copy, though, for Dragon Warrior 4 is in 9.4 condition. So that's very interesting to me. And since I brought up Dragon Warrior, we should talk about Final Fantasy. There's a lot of you out there, Sean, you don't understand. The original Final Fantasy for the Nintendo Entertainment System is a classic. That is an investment grade game. Everybody knows Final Fantasy. Everybody that grew up with Nintendo knew what Final Fantasy was, even all the way up to the 1995 Sony PlayStation release, because in 1997, Square Enix released Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation, and it blew everybody away. Well, let me tell you this. There are 62 factory sealed copies of Final Fantasy sitting out of here, and it gets better. 3 of them are in 9.8 condition, no less. Now, obviously, if there's 62 that already we know about, there's much more out there, guys. I'm telling you. Final Fantasy, factory sealed, even in high grade, it's not going to be rare. It could still be uncommon, but we're already sitting at 62 copies. And there are 11 copies, no less, in 9.4 condition at present time. That is insane to me. So let's keep going here because I think this is interesting. A lot of you guys like to speculate or invest in video games that are based on movie properties or other toy lines because you sometimes think that way you're cross-collecting, you're covering all your bases. Well, I'm going to state, in this instance, please don't do that. Because LJN's Friday the 13th, there are 105 known copies of this game that are factory sealed. And get this, 20 of them are in 9.8 condition, with another 20 in 9.6 condition, and another 18 of those in 9.4 condition. Obviously, a lot of these particular games, at least when we're talking about Friday the 13th, we can fathom were kept in factory sealed condition. That is completely insane to me. Now, here's an interesting one that I do want to point out. I was always a fan of Gargoyle's Quest on the Game Boy. Well, they did release Gargoyle's Quest 2 by Capcom for play on the original Nintendo Entertainment System. And you better believe it is kind of uncommon, but interestingly enough, there are 8 factory sealed and graded copies out there that we know of, according to these population reports, and 2 of them are in 9.6 condition. There are no 9.8 copies of Gargoyle's Quest 2 at present time. So that's something interesting. Again, I want to be fair here, and I don't just want to pull out some of the games where I come back and I say, hey, I told you so. Now that we have population reports, we can see some of these games aren't as rare as a lot of you guys thought. Because on the other end of the spectrum, I told you, when WATA would do this, there would be surprises on the other end. But what you got to keep in mind is WATA Games has only been grading this stuff for the past 3 years. These numbers are going to do nothing but go up and increase. And that's what I think a lot of you guys are missing. Now let's talk about Gradius. Gradius was a semi-popular shooter when it debuted by Konami on the original Nintendo Entertainment System. There are actually 12 known factory sealed and graded copies of Gradius, according to these reports. And the highest, there is one lone copy that is graded in 9.8 condition. But get this, there's 5 copies that are graded in 9.6 condition. So obviously, this is another game that pretty much was factory sealed, factory kept, pulled from a case, and sent to grading. If they didn't send the whole case in, I don't know. But what I will tell you is, when you see stuff like that, where there's 5 copies in 9.6 and 1 in 9.8, most likely you can conclude a lot of those games came directly from factory sealed cases. I hope you guys are getting something out of this, because we're going to continue, because we're getting right in to some of the favorites. Because as you guys know, there's a lot of games that I talk about on this channel. And one in particular I want to bring up is Kid Icarus. Kid Icarus, I told you guys when the one that was sold for like 10 grand, I said there's going to be more that are going to come to the market. Now, to be fair, Kid Icarus is not a common game, especially in factory sealed condition. At present time, WATA Games has only graded 5 copies of Kid Icarus in factory sealed condition. But this is what you need to know. 2 of them are in 9.4 condition. So obviously, there are more out there than most people wanted you to believe. If you go back and you read some of the commentary against me on collecting forums, or some individual who was well known in the vintage video game community said, Sean of Reserved Investments does not know what he's talking about. There will never be more than one 9.4 condition graded copy of Kid Icarus. Well, the population reports came out and they proved that that was a lie. Sorry, had to do the Maury Povich there on you, but rest assured, that's just what we know right now. There's going to be more of this stuff that is going to hit this market, guys. It's out there. I'm telling you. So let's continue. Legend of Zelda. Now, to be fair, I understand, again, this is a game that has different variants, different versions of the factory seal. But I just want you guys to know, there are a total 125 copies of The Legend of Zelda that are factory sealed and graded by WATA Games at present time. There are 2 in 9.8. There are 5 in 9.6. There are 23 in 9.4 condition. And you guys are arguing that this is an investment grade collectible at present time. It is insane. We're just starting. And we already see that there's 125 copies of The Legend of Zelda. Now, to be fair, I want to just click on this, because WATA Games, what they did was they combined the gold cartridge edition along with the classic re-release in gray cart style. So out of that 125, we're talking both gold first prints and also the later release that came out as part of the classic series. If you guys remember, I think it was released in 91 or 92. It was on a gray cartridge. So when we look at The Legend of Zelda, you got to understand that we are talking about both versions of those games. But there's 125 copies of that game out there, guys. You know, that's why I told some of you, you would have been better off selling this stuff outright or consigning it to auction prior to the release of these population reports. Because I'm telling you, smart investors, smart collectors that are paying a premium for this stuff, they're going to now start researching this stuff right off the population reports. And if they come to the conclusion, wow, there's a lot of that out there, the price is going to collapse in some cases. It's just going to keep dropping. There's nothing that's going to make these games more rare, if I can use that term, as time goes on. They're going to become more common because more are going to be coming into the marketplace. More are going to be getting graded and sold. Now let's go to another game that I criticized. Metroid. There are 60 factory sealed copies of Metroid in existence for the Nintendo Entertainment System that we know of, and 4 of them are in 9.6 condition. Another 15 of those are in 9.4 condition. Now, to be fair, there are no copies of Metroid that we know of, according to this population report, as of yet, in 9.8 condition. Now, let me just talk about another game here that you guys are probably aware of. It's a cult classic, Metal Gear, released by Ultra Games, which was owned by Konami, if you know the history. On the Nintendo Entertainment System, there are 45 known factory sealed and graded copies of Metal Gear. There are 2 in 9.8. There are 4 in 9.6. There are 13 copies of this in 9.4 condition. Who are you guys fooling when you talk about the rarity of these items, guys? Now let's do another. This is one's going to surprise a lot of you. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! The game that was featured on Pawn Stars, the game that was hyped by certain auction companies that I'm not going to mention to be fair. There are 57 factory sealed copies of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Out there. 4 are in 9.8, 4 are in 9.6, and 14 are in 9.4 condition. Do you really think that game should be selling at $80, $90, $100,000, given the fact that there's 57 of them out there and 4 are in 9.8 condition? Let me help you out here. Spoiler alert, these were pulled from a factory sealed case. If you just spent $80,000 or more for this particular game, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be more coming to the market. You are going to lose your proverbial ass by investing and speculating in these items. I've been saying that since this channel launched in 2019, and some of you guys still will not take my advice. What more is it going to take now that we have this information? Please tell me what more I need to do to try to convince you that a lot of these pop culture collectibles, even coming from the 80s like this, the 1990s, these are not good investments long term. You sell into the bubble. You do not buy into a speculative euphoria. That's what a lot of you guys are doing wrong. Again, this is coin mania back in the 1980s all over again. And you guys are just falling for it, some of you. Now, to be fair, again, I will repeat this. I'm sure there are certain games that are going to turn out to be quite rare, quite uncommon, even as more and more are submitted for grading. I don't doubt that. Look at the Kid Icarus example. But to be fair, the person that cut me up on that collecting forum, he got it wrong. He said there'll never be another 9.4 Kid Icarus. Well, according to WATA's population reports, there's 2 of them at present time, and they've only been grading for 3 years, guys. So let's do some more here. What I would like to do is at least, before I end this video, get to the Super Mario Brothers games, because I know they're of interest to a lot of my viewers. There are a lot of commentary when I did some videos on this about these particular games and how many are in existence. So, believe it or not, Super Mario Brothers, black box version, factory sealed. Again, you can click on it and it'll show you what different factory sealeds, even the infamous sticker sealed Super Mario Brothers that originally sold for $100,000 and is now selling for a couple $1 million because people are crazy. Well, believe it or not, there are 154 copies of Super Mario Brothers graded and factory sealed by WATA Games, and 7 of them are in 9.8 condition, 16 are in 9.6 condition, 26 are in 9.4 condition. You want to talk about Super Mario Brothers 2? This is a game, full disclosure, now that we're 23 minutes into this video, I can tell you this. I had like 5 factory sealed copies of Super Mario Brothers 2. I kept 1 for myself. I have 1 in existence sitting in storage. The other 4 were graded and sold. Now you're going to ask me, do I regret it? Well, at present time, there are 116 copies of Super Mario Brothers 2 that have been graded by WATA in factory sealed condition. 3 of them are in 9.8 condition. 10 of them are in 9.6 condition. And 21 are in 9.4 condition. Do I regret letting any of them go? Absolutely not, because these numbers are only going to increase. Remember, guys, I'm still sitting on 1 copy that I can get graded, and it'll add to this number. So just full disclosure there. Now let's talk about one more game before I end this video. I've had my fun. I gave credit to WATA for publishing these reports. Super Mario Brothers 3. Ready for this? 234 factory sealed copies of Super Mario Brothers 3. Can you imagine going on a vintage video game forum just a couple of years ago and saying, hey, I got this rare game here. It's a factory sealed copy of Super Mario Brothers 3. Now, we know the truth. There's 234 of them that we know of just in WATA's first 3 years of existence that they've graded. 10 of those copies are in 9.8 condition, guys. 29 are in 9.6, and 42 are in 9.4 condition. So I'm going to end this video there. I thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of it. I know most of you did not stay to the end, so I do want to say, eventually, according to WATA, they are going to be releasing population reports for Super Nintendo games, Sega Genesis, and the other systems that they grade, Nintendo 64 and the like. I look forward to it. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know, because it's going to be interesting. What I would like to do is, I'm assuming this channel is still going to be around 6 months from now. I have no plans of ending it that quick. But what I will tell you is, I would like to go back 6 months from now and look at these same reports, and we can pick on some of these games that I just mentioned in this video, and we can compare them to what developed in these population reports 6 months from now. Like, we can look at the quantity that they've graded for Super Mario Brothers 3, Legend of Zelda, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Kid Icarus, Metroid, and we can go from there. So I hope you got something out of this. Remember, guys, investing in any market where you don't have all the knowledge, all the facts, all the transparency is highly, highly risky. The people that pretty much profited the most from the video game boom, or the graded video game boom as it is, were the people that sold prior to these reports being released. Make no mistake, this will eventually affect the market as more people get into this game and they go, hey, I want to know how many copies are out there. Well, gee, I'm not going to pay $80,000 for that game. There's 57 of them graded and 4 of them are in 9.8. It's not worth it. There's more out there that we don't know of. You see what I mean? It takes a lot to invest in these markets, short-term, long-term. You really have to know what you're doing. WATA really took this in a step in the right direction, and I give them credit for it. I'm not cutting them up at all. Who I am, though, cutting up is a lot of my critics early on that told me, all these games are extremely rare, and they're going to be selling for a fortune. No, dude. This is graded comics. This is graded coins all over again. That's all it is. There's a lot of this stuff out there. Trust me. Thank you, and have a good night.